Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
So we have some people here and a lot of people online. Other people will be watching the recording. So if everyone goes ahead and turns in your prayer book, if you have a Mishkan Tefillah, go ahead and open it up for Ma Tovu on page 192. If you don't have a Mishkan at home, you can also go to the digital, which you can find on the Temple Sinai website, and just pull that up. You have to pull the screen over and then get us back again. Ma tovu ohelecha Yaakov. How wonderful it is that we're here in the Zwerin sanctuary.
Ma
tovu ohelecha Yaakov, mishkanotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohelecha Yaakov, Mishkanotecha Yisrael.
On the top of 193, we say together, May the one whose spirit is with us in every righteous deed be with all who work for the good of humanity and bear the burdens of others, and who give bread to the hungry, who clothe the naked, and take the friendless into their homes. May the work of their hands endure, and may the seed they sow bring abundant harvest.
On the top of page 195, we have the blessing for our health. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom, you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware, we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength.
Baruch atah Adonai, rofeh chol basar umafli la'asot.
On the next page, my God, the prayer for our souls. My God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God and God of my ancestors. Source of all creation, sovereign of all souls, praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind.
Baruch atah Adonai, asher biyado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar ish. The Nisim B'chol Yom is on that very next page. And again, our tradition is that in our early morning Shabbat minyan is for each of us to take turn, etc. So unfortunately, you are not only not mic'd, you are masked, which is even more of a difficulty. But if you can project your voice, it may even be picked up by one of the 3 microphones we have right here. So we'll go, the Ryan's household will represent all of you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lesech vivina lehavchin bein yom uvein laila.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who opens the eyes of the blind.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asuri.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who frees the captive.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who lifts up the fallen.
Next page, 200. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam roka haaretz al hamayim.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who stretches the earth over the waters.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechim et tzadei gaver.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who strengthens our steps.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who clothes the naked.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanoten leya'ef koha.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who gives strength to the weary.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Hama'avir shenai me'enai, utunuma me'afapai.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, sha'asani b'tselem Elohim.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who made me in the image of God.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani ben chorin.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has made me free.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has made me a Jew.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael b'gvura.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who girds Israel with strength.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara.
Amen.
Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who crowns Israel with splendor. And on the next page, 204, we recite the blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. In English we say, blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with words of Torah.
On the top of the next page, we read together, we seekers of God, how do we find you? In good deeds and in the study of Torah. In your search for us, you find us. In the bending of the knee, in the rigor of study, in the honesty of commerce, through a good heart, through decency, in respect, true fellowship, companionship, and love, through truth and peace, in the no that is really no, and the yes that is really yes.
Baruch atah Adonai hamelamed Torah la'amo Yisrael.
Please turn to page 214 for Psalm 92.
Now we'll notice in this psalm that it mentions a whole bunch of instruments, which we're going to hear again later in the Haftarah portion. So those of you who are here at Temple Sinai, the baskets are over there. Hopefully you have your instruments, and we'll join together in this psalm for Shabbat.
Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehadod l'Adonai, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, ulezamer l'shimcha elyon, להגיד בבוקר חסדך ואמונתך בלילות, עלי עשור ועלי נבל, עלי היגיון בכינור. מזמור שיר ליום השבת, טוב להודות לאדוני, ולזמר לשמך עליון, ולזמר לשמך עליון. Ashrei on 2:15, Ashrei yoshvei beitecha, od yalalu chaselam.
Ashrei ha'am shekacha lo, Ashrei ha'am shadonai Elohai.
Tehillah leDavid aromimcha Elohai hamelech, v'avracha shimcha le'olam va'ed.
B'chol yom avarchecha, v'ahalal shimcha le'olam va'ed.
Gadol Adonai molal me'od, v'legdoloto en cheker.
Dor ledor yishabach ma'asecha, ugvuratecha yagidu.
Hadar kavod hodecha, v'divrei neflotecha asicham.
Ve'ezuz norotecha yomeru, ugurladcha asaprena.
Zecher rav tuvcha yabi'u, v'tzidkatcha yiranenu.
Chanun v'rachum Adonai, erech alpaim ugdo chased.
Tov Adonai lakol, v'rachamav kol ma'asav.
Yoducha Adonai kol ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yivarchucha.
Kivod malchutcha yomeru, ugvoratcha yedaberu.
Lehodia livnei ha'adam gvorotav, uchvod hadar malchuto.
Malchutecha malchut ka'olamim, umemshatecha b'chol dor v'ador.
Somech Adonai lochol hanoflim, v'zokef lochol hakefufim.
Einechol elecha yisaberu, v'ata noten lechem et ochlam be'ito. Poteach et yadecha, umaspir lechocha ratzon. צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קראיו, לכל אשר יקראוהו באמת.
רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, ביברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. הללויה. Hallelujah. Get those instruments. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. El Bekadsho. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Bekia Uzo. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Givurotav. Hallelujah, hallelujah, Kerov Gurov. Hallelujah, 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 take a shofar. Hallelujah, hallelujah, never bechinor. Hallelujah, 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 betof umachol. Hallelujah, hallelujah, beminim ve'ugav. Hallelujah, hallelujah, betziltzalei shamam. Hallelujah, hallelujah, betziltzalei truah. Kol haneshama hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Kol haneshama hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. So the instruments are perfect because in every human being has his or her own instrument. Of course, we have our voice, and we have our possibility, even if you can't play guitar or play harmonica, one of the more complicated and most difficult of instruments to play, or piano or any of the other instruments, even if you can't play those, you can still keep a little rhythm. Well, mostly you can keep a rhythm, but you can clap, or you can shake something. And even still, you have that voice from the neshama. And that's important too. And that's what we're missing right now. And soon enough, I think we won't have to look out and see a sea of masks. We'll be able to see the smiling faces. And that's the biggest problem I have with the mask, is that I don't get to see the expression on your faces. In the old days, you couldn't go into a bank looking like this. Now you can't go in the bank looking like this, right? But we need to see the face. We need to see the soul. We need to see the smile, the countenance on each person. And slowly but surely, we're getting there. And I hope everyone is doing everything you can to get to the vaccinations. And so soon enough, as right now we're in this Warren Sanctuary, even though we have a group that's small enough that could have been in the Abrams Chapel, but we wanted to be able to spread out. And soon enough, we'll have more and more people come in, and it's such a delight. It's such a mechaya, a life-affirming thing to have you with each other and with us this morning. So, kol haneshama tehallel. Every soul has a voice. That last line I wanted to sing one more time. That last line, kol haneshama. Repeat with me. Kol haneshama tehallel. Hallelujah. That's that last line on page 218, the last line of Psalm 150, the last line of the last psalm. Sing with this. Kol haneshama tehallel. Hallelujah. Kol haneshama tehallel. You can hear the breath coming in, that sense of air, that sense of soul, that sense of life. And we are with the bursting out of spring, we're seeing that as well. We sing that, and the little crocuses that are coming out, that'll soon be covered with snow again. But okay, every time we make a little step up, there's a little snow on that, we take a little step back. You get on the golf course, and all of a sudden you go, oi, right? So, okay, but we keep breathing, we keep walking, we keep striving. So let us continue to sing. That's what this Pesquet de Zimra is all about. And as we turn to page 223, concluding this part of our service, we say, Baruch Ata Adonai, El Melech Gadol Batishbachot, El HaHodaot, Adon HaNeflaot, Habocher B'Shirei Zimra, Melech El Chai HaOlamim. We say, praised are you, sovereign of wonders, crowned in adoration, delighting in song, eternal majesty.
Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach irutei v'yamlich malchutei.
B'chayechon v'yomechon uv'chayedecho beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'zman kariv. Amen. Yishmei Rabba mevarach li'alam aral me'almaya yitbarach.
Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemedu kudashah
Baruchu
le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata
Tushbechata b'nechemata da'amiram be'almam. Amen. 226, if you're able, would you please rise for the call to worship? Yalla la 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 la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la la la, yalla la la la, yalla la 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 la, yalla la la la, yalla la la la, yalla la 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 la. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach. HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach. HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Please turn to page 228 as we read together the Yotzer Or. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Yotzer Or Vorei Choshech Osei Shalom Vorei Et HaKol Hameir La'aretz V'Ladarim Alecha B'Rachamim Uv'Tuval Mechadesh B'Chol Yom Tamid Ma'aseh V'Reshit Marabo Ma'asecha Adonai Kulam B'Chochma Asita Mala Ha'aretz Kinyanecha Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al shevach ma'aseh yadecha ve'al ma'orei or she'asita yefa'aru chasela or chadash al Tzion ta'ir v'nizkeh chulanu mehira le'oro baruch ata Adonai yotzer ha'ma'orot.
At the top of the next page, Ahava Rabba Ahavtanu, Adonai Eloheinu, Chamla Gadola, V'tera Chamalta Aleinu. We read together, how deeply you have loved us, Adonai, our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion, on account of our forebears whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life. Be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, have mercy on us by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah.
V'harerenu b'toratecha v'dabek lebeinu b'mitzvotecha v'yachel levavenu le'ahava u'yira et shemecha v'lo nevosh v'lo nekalem v'lo nekashel le'olam va'el v'harerenu ליבנו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה ויראה את שמך.
אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Please be seated. Continue with the V'achavta. We're on page 234.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשופך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, וחיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
At the bottom of page 238, we read together, "For us, this eternal teaching is true and enduring, beloved and precious, awesome, good, and beautiful. The God of the universe is truly our sovereign, the rock of Jacob, our protecting shield. God endures through all generations. God's name persists. God's throne is firm. God's sovereignty and faithfulness last forever. God's words live and endure, faithful and precious for eternity. From Egypt you redeemed us, freeing us from bondage. For that your beloved sang praise, exalting you. Your dear ones offered hymns, songs, praise, blessings, thanksgiving to you as sovereign, the living and enduring God, high and exalted, great and awesome. God ever humbles the proud, raises the lowly, frees the imprisoned, redeems the afflicted, helps the oppressed, answering our people when we cry out. Praise to God Most High. Blessed is God and deserving of blessing. In great joy, Moses, Miriam, and Israel responded with song to you, all of them proclaiming,
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות אוסף אלם, נורא תהילות אוסף אלם.
שירה חדשה שבחו גאולים, לשמך על שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו והמליכו, והמליכו ואמרו,
אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם ועד. Now, after this morning's service, I'm going to stay, and I'm having a group of 6th and 7th graders here. Now, for all year long, they've not been here. Of course, they've been online, and they've been doing their service virtually. But I said, I'll be here. Let them come in. Let them get to see each other as 6th and 7th graders sort of dig seeing another human being, right? It's a nice thing. And so I asked Ron, I said, so what pedagogically do you want to try to achieve? Spiritually, of course, we're going to have a little Shabbat service. I'll bring in the Torah, the whole thing. he said, you know what? They're still working on the Amidah, what the Amidah is all about. And so reminded me, you know what? Week after week, we have the recitation of the Amidah, first silently, and then we share it out loud. And we're used to that idea of, well, the silent is for my own private meditation. That's cool. And then the public is for our communal expression. That's also beautiful. But what we're thinking about in this part of the liturgy, because the Shema Berchatecha, we're almost finished with. We're going to be concluded, as we say, Ga'al Yisrael, with Tzur Yisrael in just but a moment. The Amidah is commanded for us to bring as an offering. In the ancient world, they literally would bring offerings, and we're going to see in this week's Torah portion, Shmini, various offerings and how and what was brought exactly. And there's a unique expression of it, and yet my point was that what they had in that ancient world was a physical offering that I could bring. After the destruction of the temple in the year 70 of the Common Era, we didn't have that. Instead, the rabbi said, instead of a physical offering, bring avodah shebalev, the offering of your heart, right? And so to take that seriously, the idea that what is that expression of my heart? And what do they craft? The avot and the imachot, the reference to our ancestors, our parents, our grandparents, our great-great-grandparents, all of the Bobis and Zadis that preceded them, all the way back to Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebecca and Jacob, Rachel and Leah, to say, I'm a part of this family, this mishpacha. To start as the offering of my heart is to say where I come from. I know, Mark, you nod your head right now because you're thinking, especially this week, of the Holocaust remembrance of family. You think what they went through, and you say, what my role is. And each of us here have that as well. You think of Jerry, you think of the loved ones who are part of our life. And that's a part of our offering too. The next one, the Atagi Borei Lam Adonai Mechaye Mitim. God, you've given us life, but you also help Mechaye Mitim. You help bring life to those who no longer here who are no longer here physically, right? The dead still live on with us. We knew that. We can see them in our mind's eye. We light a memorial candle, and it's not just for the flame. It's also for the sense that what they were all about, we still cherish, and we still have them with us, right? And so the second is of the reaffirmation of life, even after the mortality. And third, the Kiddusha. The Kiddusha is that life can be holy, the holiness of our experience. And that's not a given either, because there's a lot of schmutz in this world, right? There's a lot of things that set us back. And so to say, you know what? Besides the schmutz, besides the corruption, besides all the aggravation, what can I see that is sacred? What can I bring that is sacred? Those are just the first three of the Amidah, the standing prayer. I'm bringing these as offerings, a reflection of my ancestors, a reflection of the fact that I am celebrating life, and even those who have passed away, they still live in my heart. And this idea that each of us have a role to make this world a little bit more sacred through our actions. Each time I stand up, I can bring those offerings, and that's what we're about to do. So what do you think? Can I bring that to the 6th and 7th graders? Would that work? All right, good. Michael likes it. So if you're able, please rise for first the silent Amidah, and then to recite it publicly. Tzur Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Ufteichem mecha, Yehuda v'Yisrael, Go aleinu Adonai Sebaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch atah Adonai, Gal Yisrael. When you're finished with your private prayer, please be seated.
Ratzon imre vi vehegyon libi lefanecha Adonai tsuri vegoali Adonai tsuri vegoali.
So then after the silent prayer, we look around and say, I'm not alone. I have all these other people around me who are part of a community, my friends and neighbors, people who each are bringing something of their own offering. And that little meditation beforehand, Adonai Sevatai Tiftach, God, let the words that come out not be stiff, not be formalic, not be theoretical. Let them be heartfelt. Let them come right from my soul. If you're able, please rise as we continue, as we chant the Avot, the Gevorot, and Kedusha, beginning on 242. Adonai Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Velohei Avotenu V'Imoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Velohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Velohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Cha Nora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Dovim V'Konei Hakol V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imachot U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem Leman Shemo B'Ahava Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen Baruch Ata Adonai Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah Ata Gibor Elam Adonai Mechaye Meitim Ata Rav Lo Hoshia Morid Hatal Mechakel Chayim Bechesed Mechaye Meitim Berachamim Rabim Somek Noflim V'Rofei Cholim Umatir Asurim Kayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Michamocha Bal Gevorot Umidam Melach Melech Memir Umchaye Umatzmiach Yeshua V'ne'eman Atala Chayot Meitim Baruch Ata Adonai Mechaye HaMeitim. The Kedusha on page 248.
Nekadesh et
Shimcha ba'olam Kishem shemakdashim Oto b'shmei marom Kakatuv al yad neveyecha V'kara ze el ze ve'amar Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzevaot, Melech kol haaretz kevodo. Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Ma'adir Shimcha b'chol haaretz. Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo. Echadu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu, Hu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu, V'chu Yashmienu, Barachamav le'enei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai le'olam, Elohai Zion, Ledor Vador, Hallelujah. Ledor Vador Nagigod Lecha, ונצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש, בשבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Please be seated. So we're going to continue on page 250. We're going to sing Yismechu or Vishamru. We got it.
This is a democracy.
We got a Vishamru. We got Vishamru. So we're on page 250. You get the instruments ready going? Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת
לדורותם
ברית עולם.
On the bottom of page 252, we continue with the Amidah, and we read together, Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest. Sanctify us with your mitzvot, and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, and gladden us with your salvation. Purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, Adonai, our God, grant us your holy Shabbat as a heritage. May Israel, who sanctifies your name, rest on Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai, who sanctifies Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Let's turn for the Ritzei on page 255 as we read together. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu ba'amcha Yisrael utfilatam ba'ahava tekabel util ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael amecha Baruch atah Adonai she'otcha levadcha b'yira na'avod. And so turn to the very next page, the Hoda'ah, the Thanksgiving offering. Again, one of the things that is such a highlight during the normal world, I hope we get back to that, is the Hoda'ah, the Thanksgiving paragraphs are read from one to the other as we each get a chance to share. And then we conclude with Modim anachnu lach. For this we give thanks. I give thanks that I get to see you, and I hope that you have, and I know you do because I see the smiles you have looking at each other as well. So the Hoda'ah that we have on page 257 is wonderful, but I did want to give one other thing as well. I get the ultra thrill of, because Rabbi Coleman and Dan Yolis will be doing the bat mitzvah service at the mincha, right? So that's why I'm here. So I thought I'll be all alone. Or I could call upon Rabbi Susan and Sam. So I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. So here's the invitation. As you know, it's nice to have our lay leadership back as well. and a goodly number of you from Rabbi David and Alan and Larry and each of you. I know, Gene, you've done a lot too. I don't know, Jay, if I've had you and Lori lead a little bit, but it'd be nice to try to get more and more people to participate, and Julia as well, to see slowly but surely. And if there's a part in the service, and that's for you here as well as online, if there's a part in the service, you know what I'd love to do? I'd love to do a little Devar Torah, or I'd like to read some of the Hebrew of this, or the English of that, or this part of the service, or that part of the service. Just let us know. And when you're ready to participate and to lead, that's a mechaya. For this, modim anachnu lach. For this, we'll give thanks when we can have each of you know this service is our service. It belongs to the community. And so when you're ready to start participating and leading again, let us know. So with that, we're going to go you and then Sammy and then me. So this is all over the place, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
All right, we'll figure it out.
For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and challenging our imaginations.
Modim anachnu lach.
For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons.
Modim anachnu lach. For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements. Modim anachnu lach.
For human community, our common past and future hope, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression.
Modim anachnu lach.
For high hopes and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared.
Modim anachnu lach. For all who have labored and suffered for a fairer world, who have lived so that others might live in dignity and freedom. Modim anachnu lach.
For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose.
Modim anachnu lach. We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Blessed are you, Adonai. Your name is goodness, and you are worthy of thanksgiving. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, ulecha na'el lechodot. Sim shalom, a prayer for peace. Sim shalom, tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed rachamim v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yisrael amecham barcheinu yotzreinu kulanu kechad be'or panecha ki be'or panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu sim shalom tova uvracha Chen v'chesed rachamim v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yisrael amecham Torah chayim ve'achavat chesed ve'achavat chesed u'saraka v'racha v'rachamim ve'chayim v'shalom sim shalom tova v'vracha Chen v'chesed v'rachamim v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yisrael amecham v'tov b'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך sim shalom טובה וברכה חן וחסד ורחמים ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל ישראל עמך Baruch atah Adonai hamvorech et amo Yisrael b'shalom. Blessed are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. So we're going to continue with the Seder Kriyat Torah, the service for the reading of the Torah, page 362. This week's Torah portion is Shmini. I'm going to be reading from chapter 9 and 10, and I'll explain it as we go along. So do we have a rabbinic student who can help open up the ark doors?
I can.
Oh, right. Please rise if you're able.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai ve'ein k'ma'asecha malchutecha malchut
Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch le'alam va'ed, Adonai olamo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom, harachamim heitiv avetzoncha, et Zion tivnei chomod Yerushalayim, tivnei chomod Yerushalayim, ki v'chalevad batachnu, melech eram v'nisa adon olamim, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah, u'davar Adonai Yerushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah, L'amo Yisrael, b'kedushato. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol Shemo, Gadol Adonai iti, Unramama Shemo Yachda Lech. Adonai Hagadula ve'Hagivura ve'Hatiferet ve'Hanetzach ve'Hahol ki vo v'Shamayim u'va'aretz ki vo v'Shamayim u'va'aretz. Adonai Amamlacha v'mitnaseh lecho lerosh. Please be seated. So in my video this past week that came out yesterday, I mentioned the significance that this Torah portion had, at least from my perspective, in that we had, it's the Shmini, right? It's the eighth. It's the eighth day. Eighth day of what? Shmini means eighth. Eighth day of, well, we know that on the eighth day there's the Brit Milah, there's the naming, the covenant. We have 7 days of work, and we have an eighth day, that 7 days of creation that God created, but on the eighth day it's ours. So there's a beginning part of 8. And so the Torah had an 8-day ritual for the ordination of Aaron as the Kohen HaGadol. Aaron, of course, the brother of Moses. And for 8 days, they brought offerings, and they had the teachings and the celebrations. And on that 8th day, and we're going to then talk about it, on the 8th day, then, Moses and Aaron come out, and they bless the people. But here's the thing what the Midrash was concerned with. He came out, and he blessed, Aaron did, the people, and there was an offering, but nothing really happened. And then Aaron and Moses went into the tent of meeting. They came back out. They blessed the people again. And then a fire went out and consumed the altar with and all that was on the altar, i.e., almost a fire from heaven came and accepted that offering. And the Midrashim, the Talmudic passages, the commentators always emphasize that what was happening was a great deal of concern on Aaron's part, because he did play a role in the building of the golden calf. He had let down the people. He certainly let down Moses, and he had a sin before God for indulging in this idolatry. And he wondered whether or not he was not forgiven. And that's why this altar was just sitting there with all of the sacrificial meats that were on it, but no fire consumed it. And it was only afterwards that a fire came out, and Aaron felt this sense of acceptance, of forgiveness. And so what should have been this day of great joy, in fact, it says the people, the people cried out and sang with joy. They soon had a different kind of fire that came out. It was a fire that caused a tragedy. In that confluence of events, of great celebration, of doubt and of being mifoched, of being afraid that maybe I'm not good enough, and Aaron was good enough, and it was accepted, and all of this came, and then instantly afterwards, he had this terrible tragedy. And I thought that tension between celebration and the time of grieving that we've seen throughout history, that we've experienced as well. Times of great celebration, but then times of loss. That this Torah portion is read during the week of Yom HaShoah seems certainly appropriate. A time in which we had all this anticipation. The Jewish people in Europe were in the 20th century. We finally were citizens. You think, what, that's such a big deal? It was. Throughout much of Europe, just a generation earlier, they weren't even citizens, right? Finally, we're in the universities. Finally, we were making a mark. We were having the opportunity to hold our head up high. We could celebrate the coming of this new era, the middle of the 20th century. That was our time to celebrate. No, a fire came out. What does Holocaust mean, by the way? A whole burnt offering. A fire came out to remind us that life is not all celebration, that each step we take, there's also some danger and fear out there too. We're going to read this very important passage. Again, it's from chapter 9 and then into 10 of the book of Leviticus. In the Plouch, you can find it on page 708. I'd like to call upon Larry Pullman to recite the first blessing. Yamod le ben natanu mecha, who's about to turn 60. Right. Let me show you where we are.
How are you?
I feel good. V'yakrev et hamincha.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barak le'elam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'elam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein ha'torah.
Amen. V'yakrev et hamincha v'maleh chapo mimena v'yaktir al mizbeach milavad olat haboker. So what Aaron was bringing now were the concluding rituals, the concluding sacrifices for this ritual in which he was again going to be ordained as the high priest, the Kohen HaGadol. And he brought near a mincha, the flour or grain offering. He took a full handful from it and he turned it into, he brought it to be consumed on the altar. And this was in addition to the morning offering, the Tamid offering, that morning offering that was given. The Yishchat et hashor ve'et ha'ayil zevach hashlamim asher la'am. And he also then had the sacrifice of the bull and the ram as the peace offering or the whole offering. That was on behalf of the people. V'yamtzi'u b'nei Aharon et hadam elav ve'yizrakehu ala mizbeach saviv. And then his sons, the sons of Aaron, took some of the blood. They passed it down, and then he to him, and then he then sprinkled it all around that altar. Ve'ed hachalavim min chashor umin cha'ayil. Now, you might think, well, there's a lot of details about the sacrifices. The book of Leviticus is filled with this so that we can fully imagine. So what they took next, they took the fat from the bull as well as from the ram, and it tells you exactly what it was. Ha'olyah, ha'alyah, which was the tail of the kevis, of both the bull and the ram. The hamchaseh, and that is the fat that covered the stomach area, the big layer of fat. Now, why do you need so much fat on an altar? Yeah, it burns, right? You have to have some grease in there. And so that's important too. And it tells you then also these other fatty parts, the fatty parts that covered the hachlayot, v'hayoteret hakabed, the fat that covered the kidney as well as the liver. V'yasimu et chalavim al chatzot, and then they put all that fat on top of the breast, the breast meat that was put on the altar. V'yakter chalavim ha-mizbecha, and that's how they were able then to burn up the fats that were on in the offering that were on the altar. Ve'et chatzot ve'et shok hayamin Henif Aaron tenufa lifnei Adonai, kasher tziva Moshe. And then he took those the breast meat, and he took the hind quarter, the right hind quarter, and Aaron offered it as a wave offering before God as was instructed by Moses. So now we can picture this ritual in which Aaron's sons were participating in it as well. These offerings are brought up, and the people, right, were just experiencing this incredible ritual. They're all observing. This was all outside, and they were seeing all of this up there. It's not yet inflamed. They were bringing it as the offering, but it's not yet accepted.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natah b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Thank you, Buddy Moore.
Thanks.
And now for the second, we'd like to call up Mark Reisner and Susan and Hannah. You want to come up with him as well? The whole family. We get the generations, and Mark, of course, it's in memory of grandfather and an uncle, but your whole family that perished in the Shoah. And so this is where we're right here, V'yisa Aaron. Right. Okay.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai v'rach le'elam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher baruch banu mikol ha'amim v'notan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. And your Hebrew name, Moshe ben Aaron, you get both of the major characters that we have here. So
Good timing.
Yeah. So Hannah, you want to hold one side? Yeah. So now after he had these offerings, what happens? V'yisa Aaron et yadav. Aaron, he's the high priest. He lifts up his hands el ha'am, to the people, vayvarchem, and he blesses them. This is where we get that passage. Later on, we'll have that in the 6th chapter of the book of Numbers of the Kohen, the Birkat Kohanim, in which the Kohanim would raise their hands and they would have this blessing. So he blessed them. V'yered me'asod hechatat v'ha'olah v'hashlamim. And then he went down, he came down from the altar, from doing all of the offerings, including the sin offering, the whole offering, the peace offering. Again, it's not fully accepted yet. Vayavo Moshe ve'Aaron el ochel moed. So then Aaron, together with his brother Moses, went into the tent of meeting. V'yetzu. And then after being in the tent of meeting, they probably talked to God and say, hey, God, we got all the people here. We got the sacrifices here. Come on, we're sorry. We need your help here. So they came back out. Vayvarchu et ha'am. And then together, Aaron and Moses blessed God. And this is what happened. That blessed the people. And it says, Ve'yerak kavod Adonai el kol ha'am. And then the glory of Adonai appeared to all the people. They felt that it was happening, that God's presence was with them. They're in the middle of the wilderness. After all they've been through, they felt God's presence. All of them, not just Moses on Mount Sinai. All of them, they felt it. V'teitzei eish milifnei Adonai. And a fire came forth from Adonai. V'tochal al hamizbeach. And then it consumed all that was on the altar. Et ha'olah ve'et ha'chelavim. V'yar kol ha'am v'yaronu v'yiplu al panechem. And then that fire finally consumed all that was on the altar, including the whole offering and all of the fat. And the people saw, and they sang in rejoicing, and they fell on their faces in supplication, in celebration of God and of their faith.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam notah b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach. Very good. So I want to call up Jay Dworkin and Lori Landy as well. Jay, many of you may not know, was battled quite a battle for his health. And so one of the blessings, which it's always a delight to be able to offer, is the Birkat Hagomel. And you can find that also in your prayer book. On page 371. So we're going to recite that for him in just but a moment. But let us call you up first to recite Torah blessings. It's the saddest part of this Torah portion, but it has some wonderful things to teach us as well. Ya'amdo shlishi Leah bat Yosef Lev veYehuda ben Yosef. And here's the section that we're reading. Baruch Adonai Barak Le'elam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBarak Le'elam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. So right after all of this acceptance of the offering, and everyone's singing with joy, V'yichu b'nei Aaron Nadav v'Avihu, and then the sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, they took ish machtato, each person, each one of them took his own fire pan. V'itnu v'chen esh, they put in their firing coals. V'asimu alecha ketoret, and they put incense upon that coal, that fire coal. V'yakrivu lifnei Adonai, and they brought it close as an offering to Adonai. But it brought esh zara. It was a fire that was a strange fire. Was it intended to be strange? Was it simply just done incorrectly? But it was an Eish Zara Asher Lo Tziva Otam. But it was a fire that was inappropriate, one that was not instructed, not commanded. It was not a mitzvah to them. And what happened? V'teitzei Eish Milifnei Adonai V'tochal, the phrase that we had just 3 lines earlier. A fire went out from before God, v'tochal, and it consumed, but not the ketoret, not the incense. Rather, the fire consumed otam. It consumed them. V'yamutu, and they died. Lifnei Adonai, before God. V'yomer Moshe el Haron, and Moses came and said to Aaron, trying to find, I suppose, some words that make sense of this. Hu asher diber Adonai lemor b'krovai ekadesh ve'al panei chol ha'am ekabed. Moses said, isn't this what God had said to us all along, what Adonai had said to us? That is with those who are closest to me that I will be sanctified. And through all the witness of the people, I will be glorified. What he meant by that, we're not sure. I suppose there was some theological sense. As I pointed out earlier in the week, krovai is those who are closest to me. Also is the yakrev, the very first word we mentioned, those who bring close an offering. An offering itself is a korban, that which is brought close. Was he saying that Nadav and Avihu were sacrificed for the glorification of God? Was he trying to find something to say, well, that God is in any way celebrated through this? Moses, our great teacher, Moses, the brother of Aaron, tried his best to find an excuse, to find a justification, to find an explanation. But it was Aaron's words that we find most powerful, because his words are silence. Vayidom Aharon. And in response, Aaron was silent. Each of us have been in that situation where we've been with loved ones and friends and who are in the midst of grief and mourning. That's not a time for explanations or justifications. It's rather a time just to be there strong and loving and supportive, and not theological, not psychological, but just loving. And these words right here are instructive for us. Vayidom Aharon. Aaron was silent. He didn't want any explanation. His sons had been killed in this tragic accident.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, notei haTorah.
Amen. As you've gone through your very difficult time, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shegamal lanu kol tov. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has bestowed every goodness upon us. And the congregation says, Amen. May the one who has bestowed goodness upon us continue to bestow every goodness upon us forever. And so, Jay, may you go from strength to strength. Continue to get that strength. You've had such loving help from Lori and your family as well. And we're so glad to have you back in our midst. So you've been a part of our healing prayers for a long time, and now I can remove you from that list. But I've got a lot of other people who are still on that list. The healing prayers are on page 371, just above this Birkat HaGomel. And I want to make sure that I mention these names who are a part of my prayers every day. Estelle Agris, Ryan Albert, Mike Babbage, Stan and Sandra Bauer, Andy Bean, Emily Belstock, Samantha Bernstein, Paul Bonilla, Steve Bolcom, Arlene and Sydney Brandt, Harold Cohen, Joseph Michael Connor, Sidney Coons, Frank and Aaron DeSena, Marty Einhorn, Tim Emery, Ron Epstein, Ellen Falk, Stan Farber, Harriet Feld, Jack Fisher, Bob Frischman, Morris Ginsburg, Wendy Glasser, Marlene Gottleman, Marcia and Bob Gold, Jeremy Gold, Ellen and Erica Gulnick, Lois Haas, Jerry Hart, Miriam Hoopman, Oliver Jack, Stephen Kofler, Arnie Lash, Jerry Lassow, Lori Lavenhar, Fred and Judy Lazar, Audrey Lazar, Adrian Levy, David Levy, Juanita Lorenco, Dina Marks, Mary Ann May, Hugh Miles, Nevitt Montgomery, Diane Cushman Neal, Raphael Ben Ruven Ufega, Jane and Sam Potter, Bernie Rogoff, Alan Rosenberg, Donna Santistevan, Diana Sevilla, John Schuler, Daniel and Callista Schwartz, Raj Schwartz, Norm Sheldon, Joshua Singer, Carol Snoddy, Mark Sorkin, Sheldon Sperling, Ed Steinberg, Betty Stone, Helena Stryker, Hal Tabak, Stan Ullman, Yona Victor, Marlene Waldbaum, Valerie Wasserman, Dorothy Whitty, Eden Winnig, Jill Witchlands, Jim Wilson, Art Wolfson, Elaine Yaffe, Esther Jenkinson, Aidan Zenon, and Dr. Julie and Dr. Scott Zibelman. Are there others who are thinking of those who are struggling with the health? Larry, take your mask off so I can hear you. Mike Samuels. Peter Rifkes. Carrie Lizzie. And Dennis Schulman. I know there's on the Facebook page, I know there are people typing it in. Know that they're a part of our prayers as well. Let us sing together the Misha Berach Refuah Shlema, page 371. Misha Berach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misha Berach Imotenu Mikor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We'll turn to page 379, where we find the blessing for the new month, Rosh Chodesh. The new month of Iyar will begin on Sunday night, Mondays. We say together, our God and God of our ancestors, may the new month bring us goodness and blessing. May we have long life, peace, prosperity, a life exalted by love of Torah and reverence for the divine, a life in which the longings of our hearts are fulfilled for good. Rosh Chodesh Iyar yeh b'yom sheni. The new month of Iyar will begin on Sunday night, Monday.
Good. So we're going to raise the Torah to show you where we've read. If you're able to rise, would you please do so? V'zot haTorah she'sam Moshe lifnei b'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Ya la 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 la
La la la la la la la. Please be seated. The Haftarah portion this morning is from 2 Samuel. We're going to be reading from chapter 6, which you can find on page 729 in the Prat Chumash. And the Haftarah portion is related to the Torah portion in that we have something odd going on here. Just like Nadav and Abihu brought this strange fire to the tabernacle as an offering, and Rick talked about what happened to them, we have another odd situation that's going on in the Haftarah. What's happening is that David and this whole procession is trying to bring the ark up to Jerusalem. And the wagon sort of tumbles, and somebody reaches out in order to steady it and to steady the ark so it doesn't fall off. That person is killed. That is not the point we're going to be looking at this morning, but that's the connection between the Torah portion and the Haftarah. What I want to call your attention to is a few verses later. And this is the second attempt of David to bring the ark up to Jerusalem. And it says that there's this whole procession, and I mentioned when we were talking about instruments earlier that people were accompanying the procession with dancing and with singing, and they had timbrels and harps and lyres and all different kinds of instruments, and they were dancing, just like we find in Psalm 150, right? We have all these different instruments. We have all kinds of references to dance. And it was a wonderful, wonderful, most appropriate celebration. Well, Michal, who is David's wife, is watching all this going on, and she reprimands her husband. Later on, she said, well, you really made a fool of yourself today, didn't you? Dancing and prancing and twirling in front of all the people of Israel. She was embarrassed, absolutely embarrassed by what he was doing. And he said to her, there is no shame in praising God. And if this is how I and others choose to express our love of God, by dancing and by singing and by playing instruments, that's how it's going to be. There is no shame in that. Earlier in the service in Ahava Rabbah, the prayer that's right before V'ahavta, we said these words, V'lo nevosh le'olam va'ed. I will never be embarrassed. And that was David's message too, that he would never be embarrassed in expressing his devotion, his love for God. Nagila v'nismecha b'shuatecha, that we will rejoice and we will be happy in doing that. Now, how does this relate to life that's going on right now? Well, this Shabbat has a special name. It's a relatively new name. It's called Shabbat Tekumah, the Shabbat of revival. It's literally from the word Tekumah, is from the word lakum, to get up. This is the Shabbat that is between Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, and then next week we have Yom HaZikaron, we have Israel Memorial Day for the fallen soldiers and for victims of terror, followed immediately by Yom HaAtzmaut, by Israel Independence Day. This is the time where we get up, where we stand up, and we say we will never be ashamed. We will never be embarrassed by our devotion to God, to Torah, and to the people of Israel. And so I hope that you'll stand with me this coming week and saying, Lo nevosh le'olam va'ed. I will never be embarrassed, and I will always stand by and stand up with my people. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nevi'im tovim v'ratza v'divrehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Abocher b'Torah u'v'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek v'Yosef o David et kol bachor b'Yisrael 30 alef Vayakom vayelech David v'chol ha'am asher ito miba'alei Yehuda leha'alot misham et Aaron ha'Elohim asher nikra Shem Adonai Tzevaot Yoshev Hakruvim Alav Vayakivu et Aaron ha'Elohim el Agalah Chadasha Vayisa'u mi Beit Avinadav asher begiv'ah ve'uza ve'achyo b'nei Avidav nahagim et ha'agalah chadasha vayisa'u mi Beit Avinadav asher begiv'ah im Aaron ha'Elohim ve'achyo holech lifnei ha'Aaron ודוד וכל בית ישראל משחקים לפני אדוני בכל עצי וראשים ובכינורות ובנבלים ובתופים ובמנענעים ובצלצלים.
We jump down to verse 16 on the next page. As the ark of the Eternal entered the city of David, Michal, Saul's daughter and David's wife, was looking out the window. When she observed King David leaping and skipping before the Eternal, she came to despise him. They brought the ark into the Eternal and set it in its place in the tent that David had prepared for it. Then David sacrificed burnt offerings and offerings of well-being in honor of the Eternal. When David was done with his offerings, he blessed the people in the name of God of heaven's hosts, and he distributed to every one of the large number of Israelites, men and women alike, a loaf of bread, fruit cake, and a flask of wine. Then the people returned to their homes. When David went home to greet his household, Michal, Saul's daughter, went out to greet him. She said, "The king of Israel really honored himself today. He showed himself off before every slave girl like an empty-headed lout." David answered Michal, "Before the Eternal, who chose me over your father and all over his family to be the leader of Israel, the people of the Eternal. I shall dance before the Eternal and dishonor myself even more and lower myself even more, and yet I shall be honored by those slave girls who you were talking about." And Michal, Saul's daughter, never bore a child till the day she died.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם צור כל העולמים צדיק בך הדורות האל הנאמן האומר ועושה המדבר ומקיים שכל דבריו אמת וצדק על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו לקדושה ולמנוחה לכבוד ולתפארת על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד ברוך אתה אדוני
ברוך שמו
מקדש השבת.
Amen. We're going to return the Torah to the Ron HaKodesh. We're on page 374 and 5. If you're able, please rise.
עץ חיים לי
למחזיקים בה בתום חיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו כקדם. Aleinu is on page 586. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה יוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגוי הרצון, ולא שמנו
כמשפחות האדמה,
שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי מלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו echad. Please be seated for just a few moments as we take the time to remember our loved ones who have passed away most recently. The Kaddish Tom is on page 598. On Thursday evening, the passing of Faye Greenspan, the sister of Helena Stryker and her beloved Alan. Faye also was a Holocaust survivor, well into her 90s, and there'll be a memorial service for her on Monday. We also think of our beloved teacher, Rabbi Dr. Michael Cook, and the father of your friends. And within the last 30 days, Shelley Frankel, sister of Nancy and Howard Gottlieb, Gerald Getz, the father of Randy and Deborah Getz, Dennis Hansen, the friend of Sandy and Mike Korn, Catherine Knezovich, the mother of Karen and Brian Kaler, Larry Lazar, the brother-in-law of Sharon and Lee Keene, Dick Morgan, Anthony Morvant, the father of Kim Williams and Darren Kaplan, Lois Talion, the mother of Richard Talion and his beloved Nancy, and Jerry Thaler, the uncle of Lori Spanbauer and her beloved John. Within this week, we've also observed the yahrzeits of the following: Elaine Quinn Bryn, Harry Candiati, Sharon Cooper, Rebecca Davidovitz, Marvin Diamond, Bruce Drazen, Sylvia Antelis, Etta Gepsman, Lynn Durston, Mel Green, Leona Harris, Seymour Heller, Betty Joblove, Howard Kalnitsky, Elsie Kaufman, Edna King, Albert Landau, Cy Lazar, Donald Leonard, Margaret Lieb, Jacob Lurie, Marvin Mandelstam, William Mead, Harry Miner, Milton Marcus Oringer, Matilda Plassman, Marlene Pullman, Norman Pullman, Hans Warner Reisner, Max Reisner, Milton Rich, Jerome Robbins, Bronya Rochelle, Mildred Ruby, Bernice Bibi Schmierman, Dr. John Singer, Edwin Robert Snyder, Doris Citron Solomon, Hilda Strauss, Larry Sunshine, Marcia Wildley Vest, Selma Victor, and Dr. Henry Wolf. For all of them, we say, Zichronam Livracha. If you're able, please rise as we recite the Mourner's Kaddish in memory of all of them as we say, Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma devarach rotei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yom yachon v'chayedecha be'Israel, ba'agalav zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei almaya, יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ותדר ותעלה ותעלל שמי קדושה בריחו, לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירם בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיא, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort those who are bereaved. You can be seated if you want to. We're not going to do a whole thing with the announcements because, first of all, we're almost out of time. Number two, you get the daily announcements. You get the daily docket, so watch that. There's lots of stuff going on this week. We have Zoomathon next weekend. Lots of program for Yom Ha'atzmaut, Yom HaZikaron as well. So I hope you're able to tune in. But we have a good song. What have we got?
On the bottom of page 652, Bashana Haba'ah, in the coming year. Hopefully in the coming year, we'll rip off those masks, we'll be able to travel again, we'll be able to celebrate in Israel these wonderful holidays that we have. And so we're going to start with the refrain and then do the first verse and then the refrain. Those of you who live on the East Coast, this used to be the old El Al commercial, so y'all should know it.
Tirei, kama tov yeh, bashana, bashana, haba. O tirei, kama tov yeh,